Guys. So this is the next video. I know it's been a while since I put a video out on on my channel, but we're going to do what I call, so it's technically pinch pots, but you know, I've done so many pinch pots that several years ago I started getting really bored with teaching that same, you know, the typical pinch pot over and over and over again. So I really started thinking about how can I change it up a little bit to make it more interesting, and not only more interesting, but how can I change it up to get it to where we can be more successful and be able to do more than something that like we just normally do. So you know, pinch pots, guys, are some of the oldest art forms that we know of. You know, we have found shards that are thousands of years old, and we've even found pots that are, you know, that old. So as I started thinking about different ways of making this a little more unique and a little more interesting, is I came up with this thing that I call controlled pinching. Now, what controlled pinching is you know, if I were to hand you, so we have these primitive instincts, okay? So since we've been doing pinch pots since we've been making ceramics, so back when we spoke Ooga Booga, you know, we have these instincts that if I were to hand you just a ball of clay, a lot of times, if I don't give you any instruction or anything like that, a lot of times we just take our thumb in there and we just start pinching out and stuff like that. And if you look at the, you know, the primitive pinch pots, or even these pinch pots that you just do without having kind of a rhyme or a reason, they tend to kind of come out and lay out really flat and almost, you know, dish-like. But now what I did was I came up with this way of, if you slow down and you do what I call controlled pinching, which is what I've kind of got up here, and I've got some other things that we'll show you guys throughout these videos. You can actually make some really cool things. Like one of the things that I just recently made was this right here. So like a really nice, you know, like a margarita glass, I guess, you know. So, and you can actually do this with a pinch pot. So this is a pinch pot. I'll put that off to the side over here. Some of the other things that you can do, like, so right here, here's a goblet, you know, so, you know, a little vase, and then for sure, definitely bowls. Now, the reason why I show you guys bowls and have you guys start out with bowls first, you can start out with, you know, if you're not one of my students and you're just watching this, you guys can start out with whatever you want. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do kind of an advanced one where I'll show you guys how to do a pinch pot piggy bank using the same idea. But this helps us kind of get our clay to, you know, be consistent all the way through, and we can actually control where the clay goes as we're working up. So what I mean by that is, if we look over here at this here, this is what I'm calling, this is our controlled pinching technique. So we're going to start off at the very bottom. We're going to get our thumb, we're going to go all the way down, and here in a minute I'll show you guys how to measure. There's two different ways to measure that are effective. And then, you know, we're going to work in what I call zones. So at first we're going to work in this bottom zone and get that to be 1/4 of an inch thick all the way through, by not just pushing out our clay, but we're actually trying to push it up. Okay, and that's really the control, is to get that, instead of pushing it up and pushing out and getting these flat bowls, if we can push it up and keep it into this ball shape, and we work in, now a zone, guys, really a zone is a matter of how much the bottom of your thumb will move up, because really that's how you do your controlled pinching, is you're going to be pinching a lot like this, okay? And then if you work all the way around, so as you're pinching, you turn it, pinch and turn, and you do that, you know, as soon as you know that your bottom is 1/4 of an inch thick, well, you can slide up into that next area. And if it's the same thickness all the way through, well, then you know you got 1/4 of an inch, and you just keep doing that all the way up, and you just go into the previous area to measure and stuff and so on. So that's really what this is here. Now, by doing the controlled method with a bowl, what this does is this actually sets us up to have a nice consistent thickness all the way through the bowl, but it leaves us, you know, a nice thick top up here, okay? And for one of these designs, which is this one right here, the floral, and I'll kind of, let me show you this one here. This is a full, so this is kind of a full floral rim, where if you leave that extra clay at the top, you can kind of get these floral rims, and that's what you want that extra clay for. Now, if you're not going to go for a floral rim and you want to do more of the coil type of a rim, we'll show you that. And the reason why these are split is because when I used to do my demos, instead of doing 2 pots, I did 1. But now I'm going to show you guys. I got it all set up to where I can show you guys the whole technique for each one. So I'm not going to split them in half anymore. So these are what I would call my demo pinch pot bowls. And then to round it all off, once again, guys, I'm a big believer in, yeah, let me show you the technique and stuff like that, and then I want you to go ahead and make your pinch pots, but then I want you to own it afterwards. And so how you're going to own it is, since we just made our blank canvas, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do some relief carving on there, okay? And I've got a whole bunch of examples up here that I will show you guys throughout the videos, probably more towards the end. So this is going to be our controlled pinch pot video 1, okay? So let's talk a little bit about this stuff on the board here, because these are some of the terminologies I want you guys to start, getting a hold of and getting to understand, okay? So the design of a pot, guys, there are different areas of a pot, and I want you guys to know these. Like, for instance, the bottom part of a pot, which, it's this right here, and we're going to go over that right there. That's called a foot, okay? Now, the majority of your pot, all of this up in here, this is what we call the body of the pot. And then with the bowl, it's a little bit harder to see, but it still has a little tiny neck, but a vase, and when we get to doing some vases and stuff like that, you definitely can see that neck. So then there's the neck of the pot, and then the last part of it for right now is going to be the lip and the rim, okay? Now guys, I want you to notice that we have these set up into body parts. So if you break a pot up, you can actually break it up into the same parts of the body, okay? So I want you to kind of keep that in mind, that we're making these pots and we want them to be just as beautiful as the human body. All right, guys, so when you're doing this, guys, I came up with this method just so I can slow us down, get us out of that primitive ooga booga theory, that where we just kind of go all ham on pinching out our pinch pots. We slow down, we think about it, we go and we approach this with a little purpose and a little bit of an idea, okay? So by now you guys should know that with most of my assignments, or if you guys are just watching the channel, sketch out, guys. There's no such thing as too much sketching. Get a sketchbook, start a sketchbook, start with some scratch paper, whatever you want, and sketch not just one idea, but put a couple of ideas down on the paper, okay? And then that way it'll help you narrow it down. It'll help you start thinking about what you want to do and what you want to accomplish, okay? So now I'm going to come up over here. I'm going to try and keep this video as short as possible, but I'm going to move this a little bit so you guys can see my station over here. I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of show you this here real quick before we start getting into the pinch pot. I actually went through and I made individual ones as we went up. So the first one here, guys, is just a regular ball of clay, just cut in half. Okay, now this is how we start. So we take our pinch pot and we're going to shove our thumb into it like this. So we got our thumb down here and we're going to make sure now I'm going to tell you the little trick, guys. There are two ways of measuring your pinch pot to see how thick you are in the bottom. Now, if you take your needle tool and you just slowly push it in here until it just barely touches your thumb, then you come and you take your finger here, and this is the same kind of idea as we do on the wheel. We kind of put our thumb there and we push down on the needle, so when we pull it out, we can see how thick that is. And we know that right here, we can see that we're right about 1/4 of an inch, which is what we're going to kind of shoot for a lot of these assignments. So as soon as you know that you've got that 1/4 of an inch, now what you want to do is you want to start, like I said, we're going to start forcing our finger up here, and we're going to be pushing this clay up, which leads us into the next one here, okay? So this is going to be where we've gone through and we've kind of pushed it all up, and you can see this extra clay up here. This is our extra clay if we want to change directions. Well, we have all this clay right here to do that, which is what I did with that margarita, or that nice goblet glass type thing, okay? And I've done that with most of these here. And so now we only work on this one area until we've got it all the same thickness, since we know that that's 1/4 of an inch down here. If we can kind of get our finger and go through, like kind of feel it all the way around, well, then we know if it feels the same as where we stabbed it with that needle tool, well, then we know that it's all 1/4 of an inch. And I said I was going to show you guys another way. Another way to do it is to take your needle tool, and after you've pushed your finger down there and you've worked on it for a while and you're like, okay, yeah, I think that's 1/4 of an inch. Well, take your needle tool and you can place it down there, and then you can do the same kind of an idea. Hold it here and then kind of hold it on the outside of your ball, and you can see that, I'm not a big fan of that because it's a little bit harder to see your 1/4 of an inch idea. But then, yeah, so that's another measuring way. So then as soon as we get our bottoms done, well, then we're gonna go to the next one, which is where we're gonna work in this area here. So guys, now every time you pinch, you push up, guys, so everybody has a different zone, or the area that you're working in. So in here, so this is my area. I'm going to be pushing it up, and as I push and I pinch up and I push up into that next area, we're going to go ahead and you do that all the way around. Now, when you want to find out how thick this is, you don't have to stab it again. Is what you do is you just reach down into this area here. You feel that. We know that that's 1/4 of an inch because we did the test earlier and we made the whole bottom the same thickness. Well, now all you got to do is fill here and then slide up into here. And if it feels the same thickness, well, then you know that you're going to be about 1/4 of an inch. Okay. So let's keep going. And And really the only difference is we're just going to be slowly, pushing this up, especially, so with this one, we're going to be doing just a ball, and we're going to cut it in half, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to probably get into this area here, this phase, or this phase here. I want you guys to, when we cut it in half, it just really is just an exercise to get you practicing and get you into the habit of pinching and pushing that clay up with a purpose, okay? So once again, we've gone up and we're working in this area here, we're pinching and pushing up. Now I wanna know, how do I know this one's 1/4 of an inch? Well, it's all we gotta do really, since we've measured this one to this one and we compared these two and we know that they're the same, well really is all we gotta do is just reach down into this area and slide it up into this one, just like that, okay? Now, that's really the last one I was going to show you. I have another one here where, we've got the same amount of zones, and then this one a little bit more, and then we've got this final one here where we just got it pretty much all pinched out into a ball, okay? So now let's get to work, okay? So let's go ahead and remove our stuff. And now I know that you guys can see some of this stuff over here, guys. I've got a lot of tools, and depending on what I'm doing, I just like to have my tools accessible. But really, if you have one of my kits, it comes with all the tools you need. The other thing is, guys, you can pick up tools all the time just off the ground. One of my oldest tools that I still use in my studio is a piece of banding wire that I picked up off of a pallet back when I was in high school, okay? And all I did was I just bent it around, and so it's a nice little round scoop, almost like it is a trimming tool. And then I took and I punched the ends, and I screwed a little dowel on there. And I mean, I used to use it for all kinds of things, but now I pretty much got it narrowed down to where when I throw these great big platters, when I'm throwing my platters, that's what I go ahead and pull out. Now, how much clay do we want to start out with? Now, really, that also, it kind of depends on the size of your hands. Now, if you're one of my students, I do have kind of a requirement where we're going to go with about 1.5 pounds. No more than 2 pounds, guys. 2 pounds. This right here is 1.5 pounds. I've weighed these out, and see if you can see this right here. This is going to be a pretty big bowl. So yes, you want, as we're working with the clay, and while it's really soft, we definitely want to make it larger than what we think. And the reason for that is because our clay shrinks. Okay. Now the clay that we have here in class, guys, this stuff shrinks anywhere between, I think it was 12 to 17 or 18%. So, it's really kind of got a big variance there. I always say, shoot for the bigger one, shoot for that 17, 18%. And the reason why is because if you make it to where you think you're going to lose 17%, I mean, who complains about a little bit larger of a bowl? I mean, I know I sure don't. Okay, so, you're going to take your ball of clay and you're going to pat it out into, a ball. The one thing that you want to do after you've done that is kind of go around a little bit and clean up all your little cracks and stuff like that. You want it to be nice and clean. And the reason why is because eventually, guys, our hands are like little sponges. They're going to start sucking out that moisture. Okay, so it's going to start. If your clay starts drying out, it'll start cracking. And one of the areas that it'll start cracking first is in these areas that you already have the cracks on the surface. So go ahead and clean those up. Now I've got my thumb in here. I'm going to shove it in. I'm just going to kind of wiggle my thumb back and forth like this. I'm just kind of moving it. As I move it, I'm doing that same technique. I'm just pushing up and pushing up. Okay, and I'm just kind of making myself a little bit of room. Now is what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle tool and I'm going to slowly push in here until it touches my thumb. Okay, got to figure out where it's at. So we're right here. I already know that I'm too thick, so I'm going to just look and see where I'm at. So I'm at about 1/2 of an inch right now. I don't know if you guys can see that. There you go, a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. And I know that I'm going to go ahead and, pinch out just a little bit more in this area here. Now, let's say you're one of my students, or say you want to have a nice big bowl, and you're like, okay, well, my thumb won't fit down in that. Well, one thing you can do is take your ball and just kind of smush it down a little bit, so it's a little bit thinner. I mean, you're still going to get the same thing going on there, and then now this way, your thumb will definitely reach down there, and then kind of shape it back into a ball, but make sure that you can get your finger down there at that bottom, okay? So really, clay is malleable, guys, so you can move it around, do what you need to do to get things done. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our finger and we're going to shove it through, and I feel it, it's right there. Okay, so I'm a little bit thicker, let's see here. So I'm just over 1/4 of an inch, I'm right at about 3/8 of an inch here. So, and that's fine. 3/8 of an inch is okay. You know, you don't want to be 1/2 inch, and, you know, 3 inches is right at that, or 3/8 of an inch is right at that, you know, that good okay mark to work with. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, as I'm feeling it around, I know where my 3/8 of an inch was. So now I'm going to make sure that my whole bottom, the whole bottom of this thing is nice, and, you know, that one side's not thicker than the other and all that kind of jazz. Okay, so now that I've done that, is all I'm going to do is now I'm going to start working into the next area. So that next zone. Okay, so now really the next zone, since we've got this whole bottom pinched out and it all feels pretty close to even to me. Now I'm just going to work in this area here. So I'll go ahead and take my needle tool. So hopefully you guys can see this. I'm gonna go ahead. So I've got all this all the way around done. So now my thumb, you know, I think it reaches about a good 1/2 inch, you know, somewhere in there. So I've got a nice 1/2 inch there. And so really it's gonna be that all the way just around in here. And that's all I'm gonna be pinching is in this area. Don't go too fast. Take it nice and slow, because when we're done with this, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna chop this one in half and just take a look and see how I did, okay? So now I'm working in here, slowly pinching this up. Pinching with a purpose, you know. I've kind of got an idea of what I want. You know, I definitely know that we're going to be doing, this is going to be a bowl, and we'll get to what we do with in the next step, in the next area, in the next video. But for right now, we're just trying to get this into a nice controlled ball, okay? So now I've gone down. Now what I want to do is I want to find out if this area here that I'm working in is the same thickness as it is down here. So I'm just going to reach down. I know that that's, what did we say, 3/8 of an inch, and I'm just going to slide it up. And now I'm going to do that all the way around, working, and if I find an area that's thicker, well, then I'm going to go ahead and start, like right there, that's a little bit thicker, so I'm going to go ahead and pinch a little bit of that up, okay, and then continue on, making sure that it all fills the same thickness. Okay, so now I've done 2 different zones. I've done my bottom zone, and I've done what I call zone 1. Now I'm going to start in zone 2, okay, and really, you know, how many zones you have is really how much clay you have. I mean, if you saw that big pot at the very beginning, that was actually what I call a punch pot. So it's a little bit different of a theory on how you do it, but it's the same kind of an idea, you know, but you're going to wind up punching it a lot. You actually punch down. It's a good one to relieve some stress, you know, and maybe we'll do a punch pot video, but it's, you know, similar ideas. You want to punch, in that instance, you're going to punch with a purpose. Okay, so with this one, you know, we're going to start pinching. You know, not pinching out or anything like that, not yet. We want to make sure that we're controlling this, getting this clay to come up into that next area, you know, and just work in one area at a time. Don't try and force a bunch of clay up at once. And if you got to go down into another, you know, to kind of make it unified, do that, okay? Now, a couple of little tricks that I want you guys to know is once you have it in your hand here like this, you want to keep it round, okay? Because when it's round on the bottom, it's a lot easier to put a foot on it. So let's say you have to put it down. Well, go ahead and put it down on this top part right here like this, okay? Don't put it on the bottom, okay? When you put it on the bottom, you flatten it out, and it's really hard to get it back in that ball shape, okay? So, and not, I mean, even if it was easy, you know, you're still doing some things that you just don't need to do. So just keep it in your hand. Once again, if you've got to put it down, go ahead and put it down, but put it down on its top, okay? So I'm going to do, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check my zones. I'm a little thick here, so I'm going to pinch all that up. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach down into this area here, this zone 1, and pull it up into zone 2, because we know that zone 1 is the same thickness as the bottom, and then so on and so forth right here. So I need a little bit of work here. So we're going to come through here and pinch that up. Okay, and now I'm working in that next area, okay? So we went through and we checked it all out. And I think I'm going to do maybe one more zone, and then we're going to go ahead and cut it up, okay? Cut it in half and just take a look and see how I did, okay? Take a little bit of time. Yeah, this definitely takes longer than if we were to just go ahead and take some clay and stick our finger in there. But if you'll notice, I'm able to control this, and I'm coming up and I'm purposely going into a ball. Now, this is going to be the same idea. This one right here, we're just going to cut, because this is going to be, you know, we want to look and see how we're doing with our control. You know, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back to working on that other area, you know. So don't be afraid to go back into another area. If you're feeling that you need to, you know, pinch a little bit more out somewhere, do it. Go back. It's okay, you know. Now that we have this, I'm going to say, we're going to call it quits, and we're going to look at it, because this is where we're going to end this video here soon. Like I said, we want to keep these videos pretty short, and I think we're already at the 20-minute mark, so we got to hurry up here. So let's go ahead and one thing I forgot was to grab a wire tool. So I'm gonna go grab a wire tool and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got my wire tool. Now the easiest way to cut this without doing much damage to the actual pot itself is we're gonna pull that off. I'm gonna put my wire tool down. We're gonna put our ball of clay right on top of the wire tool, and then we're gonna go ahead and pull it and cut it in half like this. And then let's see how well we did. Oh, not so good this time. So not too bad, but one area is definitely thicker than the other. But that's okay, you know, we'll eventually get in there and fix that all up. But I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna show you guys what we should be looking for, okay? So when you guys cut yours in half, when you're doing this, and sometimes it may take a couple, but this right here, guys, this is not a bad controlled pinch, you know? So we've got about a 3/8 of an inch and we're working our way up, and it's about, you know, it's all pretty close. The one area, I had this area when I cut it in half, this area was a little bit thicker, but that's okay once again. But you know, so we've got it and it's pretty even all the way up, and we've got our extra clay. So if we needed to change the directions or if we're going to do something different, we have all this extra clay to move with. So now with this extra clay up here, let's say I wanted to kind of start coming out. Well, I have all this extra clay in here and I can go around and start bending it out depending on what I want to do. You know, like if we were going to do one of those other ones, we could kind of squish it in a little bit. But guys, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to do this. You're going to cut it in half. And then for my students, you guys are going to upload it so I can see that you're getting the controlled pinching down. I want to see one of these, and you'll be good. Okay, guys? So that is how to do the controlled pinching and how to start it off. Okay, so that's video 1. Look for, go ahead and look for controlled pinching video 2, and that'll be when we start getting into doing the bowl. Okay, so and we'll talk more about that in the next video. See you guys. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's always easier. You'll see my videos, you know, pretty quick. Turn on the notification, all that other kind of stuff. You know, it helps out, it helps grow the channel, and share it with your friends and everything. And I'd really appreciate it, guys. So thanks again, once again. See you guys later. Bye.